Welcome to another edition of the Dragonproof e-commerce podcast. I am Richard Otey. This is Rick Wilson.
Hello, everybody.
And John Lawson.
Cheers.
We're excited to have John on the show today. Rick and I have both known John for quite a few years, and he is another e-commerce author. His book is Kick-Ass Social Commerce for E-preneurs. And John, we've known you for so long, I don't even know really where to get started. Why don't you give people a little bit of background and why we have you on the show today?
You know what? I don't really tell my story enough. And I was like in a coaching class and they were like coaching you on story. And so I'm going to tell you a little story. But basically in 2001, I had purchased a house and I was going to flip this house and make a whole bunch of money. And unfortunately, that did not happen. I ended up with a second mortgage and I was working a regular 9 to 5 and was literally about to go bankrupt. I had filled out the bankruptcy paperwork and was going to file it, but I had a vacation to take. Now, isn't that great? You're going on a vacation just before you go bankrupt. But I paid for the vacation.
It's kind of the way to do it, but
right? Just get it all out the way. So I paid for the vacation the year before, and now it was time to go. And I was pretty depressed. But a friend of mine had told me you could sell stuff on eBay. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I put some stuff up on eBay. While I was on vacation, it sold. And I just was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And I just kind of kept myself afloat for a few months with the second mortgage and kept myself out of bankruptcy court. And after I kind of sold out of the things around my house, I started looking for other things to sell. Long story short, I started out doing, retail arbitrage, which is, of course, a format of e-commerce that didn't have a name when I started because I was doing it with the Sunday morning papers.
And for people listening today, explain what retail arbitrage is. I'm not sure everyone knows that name.
It's like there are things that are on clearance or returns, things like that are deeply discounted. And you can go to a retail store, buy it from that retail store, list it on places like eBay, Amazon, even if your own website, and flip it and make some money. So that's the arbitrage part. And the retail, of course, because it came from retail stores. So I used to do that. Ultimately, I moved up in terms of, taking that money, putting it back into the business until one day I was like, you know what? If I stopped working on the plantation for 8 hours a day and took that same 8 hours and added on to the 4 to 6 hours that I was doing, on the side hustle, I think I could make it work. And, ended up leaving my job in 2004 and here I am today. So
you come from a slightly different place than we talk about here on Dragonproof. Most of the time, Rick is of the mindset, more build around your own brand, your own business on your own site, but you come more from a marketplace. What, other than that's where you got started, kind of give us a little bit of a background on, why you think people should be selling on marketplaces.
I don't think people should be selling on marketplaces. That's almost like saying that people that were born in Mexico should speak English. Right? That's ridiculous.
Is that what you're telling me?
I'm trying to. I got lost in that analogy.
So the deal is, it's like that's a second language. And once you are born in Mexico speaking Spanish, you have to translate everything in English mentally. It kind of, you still think and dream probably in Spanish. I don't know. Right. But I'm sure if I do a second language, I'd still dream one way, right? I know. But trust me, I'm going somewhere with that. So when Rick first asked me to come and do, the conference, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was like, okay, MevaCon, I get it. They make stores. But as I started talking to the people, I realized that they spoke a whole different language. They thought completely different than I did. And all of a sudden, I realized both worlds have their own value. Somebody that speaks Spanish is not better than somebody speaking English or vice versa. That is just the world you were environment you were raised in. And so they were very comfortable with driving their own traffic. They understood that at an intrinsic level. And I didn't understand that because I've been paying marketplaces 15, 20% of my income to drive traffic for me. So there are different business models, but I'm comfortable with whichever one you determine would work best for what you're trying to do.
Okay, that makes sense. It's funny. I'll take a different analogy, but some people say California is super expensive, but I'm born and raised here.
Right.
But since I'm born and raised here, I don't feel like California is as expensive as much as I feel everywhere else is really cheap.
Sure.
Or inexpensive, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're basically saying that was your experience growing up, right? Your experience growing up was I came up via marketplaces. I understood marketplaces. So you're not necessarily saying people should use them, but what would be a reason people would want to? How about that?
Oh, definitely. If you're not comfortable with marketing, asking people for money, driving your own traffic, I think there is some sense of a faster, it's almost a shortcut, but you're paying more for the shortcut, right? So I think, yes, it's very easy to take something that's off your shelf in your home and list that on eBay or Amazon if it's already selling, So I think that's really great for getting your feet wet. But when you're talking about the whole world of e-commerce, I think there is a whole lot of value in learning how to drive your own traffic. It helps, Well,
because
right?
look, the marketplaces can take away your business otherwise.
Yeah, but this is this is
why we brought you.
Now we'll go.
We didn't want
into
a
it.
yes man.
No, but I'll go into it, and that's what a lot of people will say is like, but Google has taken people's traffic away and.
Of course, yeah,
right?
That's real too.
So it's like you're paying the money to somebody to advertise your product.
Well, there's always a VIG, right?
There's always a VIG.
Yeah.
So you're from the opposite side of the spectrum.
Yeah, my background it really started selling e-commerce software to existing businesses before the marketplaces had taken hold. I mean, Amazon was a website selling books at the time. It was a big news that they expanded into DVDs. You couldn't list your own products on Amazon. You couldn't piggyback on SKUs. eBay was the big thing, but eBay back then was selling stuff, usually secondhand stuff. It was like the world's garage sale, and it was cool. I certainly have sold plenty of stuff on eBay. Every once in a while I still do, it's got a little harder. These things get scale, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, I'm sure. These things get scale, and then there's some issues that pop up with the seller community. But, I came from the world of people who had existing businesses, often brick and mortar, but existing products and businesses, and they wanted to expand online. Sometimes that early world was also people who came from an industry, and they were good sourcers, which we'll want to talk about here in a second. They were good sourcers, and they decided to try to just use SEO to get to the top, selling motorcycle helmets or whatever. They didn't necessarily have a big brand before that, but they were trying to be first movers. So my world really came from people who started with an independent website, and marketplaces were kind of secondary. In fact, it wasn't. I'm trying to think when we finally added. We did eBay first, because ironically, as big as Amazon is now, when we added eBay to Miva Merchant, I want to say 8 or 9 years ago, Amazon's APIs, you couldn't even test them. You could sort of do it, but to make an automated tool to connect your store to Amazon was near impossible. Those things have matured somewhat, but it was we came at it. John and I came at this world from almost the exact opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and it was a growing world at the time.
Yeah, well, it still is in some ways.
Well,
it's shifted.
Exactly. Yeah, but it was very much in its infancy.
Yeah.
Online payments.
So you kind of alluded to it in the last couple of questions there, but if we were to say, or we were to ask you, what do you think marketplaces are doing right now? What would your opinion be on that?
What are marketplaces doing right? Other than everything?
They can't be doing everything right, because I know I can ask you what they're doing wrong and you have answers.
True. But as far as marketplaces themselves are doing a lot right, because they're taking huge swath of share of online purchasing, and they're driving the conversation now. And where I think if you would have maybe gone back maybe 10 years ago, it would kind of be the opposite. We would be talking about what Macy's is doing, what JCPenney's is doing, and that would be the industry leading stuff. And now all we talk about pretty much is what Amazon is doing. So yeah, I mean, they're driving the conversation, that's for sure.
And I'd actually love to hear your opinion too, Rick, because even though you come from the other side, like, I know there's some things they're doing right. And I'd love to hear
sure. And I mean, yeah, and anyone who's listened to the podcast or read the book or heard me speak, I'm not anti-marketplace. I think you should leverage those marketplaces. I have a theory about how you should leverage them, but you should leverage those marketplaces. Amazon is 50% of online retail, both direct, so that's their own stuff plus their marketplace combined, of publicly traded e-commerce companies, right? So that counts the Macy's and the Apples and all that stuff. And they're about 35% of total estimated e-commerce in North America. So add them and eBay together. Let's call them the two dominant marketplaces are taking half. That doesn't count things like Instagram or Google Shopping, which aren't really marketplaces. Those are more ad engines, right? Where marketplaces truly are, the difference between a marketplace, say, and an ad is the checkout funnel, right? An ad leads you back to your website, Instagram, Google Shopping, Bing Shopping, Pinterest, right? All those things lead you back to your website. You own the customer. You've paid the marketer. You've paid the guy out on the street to hand out your flyer to someone coming to your restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. Where the marketplace is actually selling your food for you, right? Like, think about it like when I Postmate something, even though I know what restaurant I'm picking, I pay Postmates. Postmates brings me my food. Postmates is like a marketplace for food. So 50% of e-commerce sales in the US, not counting services like that, run through marketplaces. And I do think they drive a lot of the conversation because they get the media attention. Media likes to focus on the big thing. And I believe you should be, if you can do both, that's the winning strategy. If you can leverage a marketplace profitably and have an independent website, you get extra profit. You can control your destiny. You can have a better customer experience. But John, let me ask you this. We talked about this a little bit yesterday in the prep time. What's the one thing Amazon really sucks at?
What's the one thing Amazon really sucks at? What did I say?
Product discovery. You don't go browse on Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, by the time, and that's what they suck at, and also that's what they're good at, I guess, is that by the time you get to Amazon, you already know what you want to purchase. You're not going to Amazon to just browse today and see what's available. That's rare that people are doing that. By the time they get there, they're ready to make purchases.
Yep.
And that's their value and also what they kind of suck at. The shopping experience on Amazon, in my opinion, sucks. It absolutely sucks. But the delivery is great.
Yeah, it's all about the logistics.
Exactly.
I mean, they really are. They are a checkout and logistics platform.
Yeah. And they've streamlined that very well.
Yep.
And that has given them market leader position, in my opinion. But also, kind of back to what you said on the last part was I wanted to make a point that even though, yes, Amazon sucks a lot of wind because it is the big thing that press talks about, but it's also still, it's training customers. And we have to just keep up with whatever they're doing, at least in, delivery and execution, just to stay in the game as third party, or not third party, as first party platforms. So even if you've got your own web store, you still have to be concerned about 1 day and 2 day shipping now, simply because of Amazon training other people that buy online on what the experience, quote, should be.
Not just 1 and 2 day shipping, free 1 and 2 day
free
shipping.
1 and 2 day shipping.
Yeah, people want their stuff fast and they want easy returns too.
Yep. And who started that?
Amazon?
No.
Who?
Zappos.
Oh yeah, that's right, with the shoes.
Yes,
because they were trying to solve the try-on problem.
Exactly, and that's what everybody kind of forgets, is that a lot of what Amazon learned, they purchased because Zappos was kicking their ass on shoes.
Yep.
And it's like, look, we can't beat these guys. Let's bring them in. And not only did they bring them in, they let them bring their culture and they learned from it. That's some valuable stuff. When it comes to acquisitions, I mean, I love what Amazon does with their acquisitions. It's a learning opportunity for them versus like eBay, who has acquired many things and just sucked the wind out of everything.
Yeah, eBay has a unique ability to
do.
mostly destroy something and then resell it.
Yes, absolutely. Like what, Skype? Remember they owned that.
They own Skype. Yeah, they've owned a lot of stuff, and supposedly they're about to divest StubHub. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's for this
We're not gonna
podcast.
talk about it. But that's good.
But one of the things we were talking about that I wanted to ask you about here was, and this isn't either eBay or Amazon's fault, but there's also other problems that start happening when you have lots of sellers competing. Because what happens when you have multiple sellers is you get some shady seller behavior.
You get shady seller behavior because it's always a race to the bottom.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. And so what did you see in that on eBay? Like how did you see that coming, and how have you seen that played out on eBay? How much do you see that hitting Amazon now?
So let's think about eBay's business model and how it changed from being an auction platform, like you said before, and the secondhand store, to trying to be a whatever it is today. I don't know exactly what eBay really wants to be when it grows up. But the deal was that you could get visibility because your auction was about to end. So you would get to the top of the listing platform based on time ending soonest, right? And that would give your product some visibility. Today, not so much, because they kind of tried to model what Amazon does with the buy box. And I think that alone gets to the race to the bottom. It's like, we're going to give the person that has the lowest price and, some level of serviceability the top spot. But back in the day, eBay would let everybody have the top spot, and the customer was allowed to determine which person was going to buy from it, because you would see everybody that was selling the same product. On Amazon, you don't see everybody. You have to press 2 buttons to get to everybody.
Yeah, and their list of everybody is like a weird grid.
It's a weird grid, and it's because here's the deal. Amazon, I don't know how I should put this, but Amazon is Amazon doesn't really sell products. People think Amazon competes with you because it sells products. Amazon really competes with you because it sells Prime. And so it's not just putting up the lowest price product, it puts up the lowest price Prime product, or it puts up the lowest price Amazon made Prime product. They have so many levers they're able to pull at different stages and phases of the game that you're totally confused. I can lower my price by 20% and still not win the buy box. What's happening there?
Right. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, we were talking about this yesterday. You mentioned one of the things about being good selling online is being a good sourcer. Why don't you talk about that for a second?
That's when we're talking about on marketplaces.
Yep.
Right? So a lot of people are
I would argue you need that anywhere. If you can't,
do need that anywhere.
Yeah, that's a skill you have to have.
You do have to have that. I get that. But I mean, there are legacy businesses that have been with the same manufacturer for years.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yep. You have distribution rights or whatever.
Exactly.
Those are rare, but that's,
E-commerce and marketplaces is a whole nother ball game. So we have a lot of people that are building these, and I'm doing air quotes, guys, businesses. And it's like, I've got an e-commerce business, and I'm like, you know what? I want to wake you up a little bit. Your e-commerce business really is to find products for for Amazon. You are a glorified Amazon independent shopper, right? Because as soon as somebody else
buyer, really,
buyer, right?
Yeah.
So you are out there doing all the manual labor, so they don't have to have a sales team running through conferences all the time trying to find new product to sell. They let third parties do that, and that is your business. And if you don't understand that part, then you run the risk of being shocked and surprised when somebody else comes into the marketplace, happens to go to the same show that you did, and will undercut you for that product on that same price.
Or nowadays, someone in China actually works at the real factory and can ship straight from China.
Let me just tell you, Amazon did a show. I don't think they did it this year, but last year they did a show in New Orleans for sellers. That seller show was 3,000 people. Third-party sellers from the U.S. that went to that show. It was hot as Hades because the air conditioner broke down. I'll never forget. That same year, 3 months or 4 months later, they did one in China and 10,000 sellers showed up.
Wow.
That just lets you know what's happening. And if I'm looking at that from an Amazon perspective, I'm like, okay. And I'll tell you, honestly, this China thing right now is actually helping Amazon.
We talking about the tariff China
Tariffs
thing?
are helping Amazon. Why? Because why do you think Amazon has their own planes? Yeah, sure, they need to move stuff from LA to Kentucky. I get that. But more than anything, they want to move that stuff from China to here and cut all the third-party guys out. So that I was just on a panel last week. I'm going on. But I was just on a panel last week in the UK. And I'm sitting there, and the UK leader of whatever for Amazon sitting there. She's a lovely lady. And I didn't want to beat up on her. And she's talking about, I love the customers and we love the customers. And I was like, excuse me, I'm your customer too. You don't love me that much, right? I'm the seller. Amazon has more than one customer. And trust me, when it comes to, hey, can we go directly to manufacturers, take that stuff pallet by pallet and bring it over here, put it in our warehouse and never have to deal with these crazy third-party sellers? They get that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Amazon's view of the world, they've never stated this, but their view of the world is there's a person buying and they're going to deliver a product to that person and they own everything in between. And you're correct. If you're a buyer for Amazon, it's a job. Now, you may be able to make that a job you like, right? You may be able to make that, it's not a guaranteed job. You don't get health insurance, but you might be able to make a great living. You work on your hours.
Oh, millions. I know guys doing millions tens
totally.
Of millions.
And I think this is where the Dragonproof stuff comes in and kind of the point of the book. If you can get enough momentum there, then you want to start looking at how can you actually turn that from a job into a business, right? And turning that from a job into a business, I believe requires having an independent website because that's where you can control product discovery. You can release new products. You're in charge of margin. You can, what were the three things, Richie? It was getting more people to buy, increasing average order value,
and getting them to, getting them to come back.
Come back. Yep.
New customers, getting them to come back, increasing cart value.
And Amazon and eBay only do one of those three, which is getting you new customers. And they do those exceptionally well. And it's so hard to do that. That's why they thrive.
Yeah. But you know what? While you're just talking and thinking, it made me want to change from business change from, what did you say? That most of these people don't have
I said they have a job.
They have a job.
It's like a.
So instead of saying from a job to a business, the deal is I think it's changing it from a job or business to a company.
Yeah, and maybe that's the right way to look at it.
It's like you're not a company yet.
Mm-hmm. So that being said, you came up via marketplaces, but you have a lot of examples of how people got to watch out via the marketplace. So what would be something that you would describe as a way that people could Dragonproof themselves, knowing all these goals of Amazon to control?
One word, brand. So you got to create a brand. Amazon, like I said, is all about, matter of fact, they've removed the name Amazon from the box.
Yeah, it's just a smile.
Brand. No, it's Prime.
Oh, it says Prime now?
Yeah, we're looking right at one too. That made me think of it. And when
no, that's the sticker. Look at the side of the box. People can't see this who are watching at home.
It's got the smile.
It's just
Prime.
The smile. It's like the Nike swoosh of e-commerce.
Prime.
It does say Prime?
Yes, because here's the deal. I'm flying into, where was I at? South Florida, somewhere in Florida.
Well, that's what the planes
Jacksonville, where the planes stay.
Yeah, the planes say Prime with the smile.
With a smile.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all of a sudden, then I look at the trucks. They say that. The vans say that. Amazon is building a whole brand around Prime.
I have a theory about that.
What's that?
So my theory is this. I think they're going to keep the Amazon brand for purchasing.
Yes.
That's where you go shop. You go shop at Amazon.
At Amazon.
Prime is their UPS and FedEx competitor.
Yeah, they're already ready for being broken apart.
Yeah. And then I don't know what you're going to call Prime Video, but that's they can come up with a name for that. Does anyone watch that?
You know what? People do watch it. They're winning awards. I mean,
it's so crazy. Yeah, didn't they win some Oscars?
Not Oscars, but the other one.
Oh, Emmys.
Yeah. They've won some Emmys, and they're putting a lot of, look, Prime, just throwing that in makes it more valuable to some people. It's like, hey, plus I get Prime videos. Okay, I can deal with that. I can watch my X-Files now.
Well, that's sure. If you think about the fact that we went from being willing to pay 90, or I guess it's $119 a year now for 2-day shipping, to expecting free 2-day shipping. Once you've created your own trap, right? Because if I expect free 2-day shipping, why am I paying $120 to get free 2-day shipping? Oh, but I'm also getting a Netflix competitor.
And I'm also getting Thursday football. And I'm also getting,
all that
they just
stuff.
keep throwing little things in.
Let's go back to one of the things, though. Let's talk about what happens when you get to scale in marketplaces and you have, the bad actions from sellers. One of the things we've seen on Amazon is people doing fake reviews to bring your sites down. People doing counterfeit products and fulfillment by Amazon. What do you tell people about that stuff?
I think it's part of the growth of the marketplace. And we saw this same thing happen with eBay.
Right.
And it ended up really hurting eBay. And why it hurt eBay is because you end up having to put in these, walls and fences to make sure that the bad guys, you start catching, whales in the tuna net. You're trying to get the bad guys out, but you also start hurting a lot of your big guys as well. And I don't know how they're going to deal with it. I thought eBay did a pretty poor job, and that allowed a lot of third-party sellers to say, oh, let me start looking at Amazon as an option. And now I'm starting to hear from the Amazon crowd as they're starting to refocus and look at eBay as an option as their stores are getting bad. Because you can't, Amazon, man, it's hard once you get shut down or once you get some strikes against you to continue on that platform. You can't have your store shut down arbitrarily.
Well, number one problem is you get in trouble even if it's not your fault and there's no phone number to call.
There is a...
if you pay $5,000 a month, there's a phone number.
Of course. You can talk to us how much you have. But also at the same time, what we're dealing with, which is different than, I'm just thinking about, it's different than the eBay time, is we're dealing with Mother, the computer. See, so even when you talk to somebody at Amazon, they will tell you, I really don't have the ability to make this change.
Oh, right.
Right? Because they'll say, okay, and they'll make the notation, and 6 months later, it could happen to you again because the computer, the AI.
Yeah, the algorithm is making the decision.
It's shutting you off. So it's dude, in the eBay days, there was somebody actually looking at this data.
Yeah, no, that's true. In order for this stuff to scale, the algorithm has to make the decisions.
Yeah.
Because the algorithm is making the decisions, people can game the decisions, which is part of my thesis that in the book and in all this stuff is that's why no one company can take over more than, say, half of the retail, right? Because beyond that, there are too many ways to game the system, and therefore you drive people to look for other alternatives. So the other alternatives go back to eBay. Or we were talking about this yesterday in our pre-interview stuff. If we were launching a new product today, a new product no one's heard of, right? Let's say a t-shirt that you can change by doing that, right? I'm rubbing on John's chest right now, and it says from I am something to a skull. But you're launching a new t-shirt, and no one's ever seen this before. How do you share that information? I know how I would do it today. I'd start with a short video on Instagram, or maybe you and I have been talking about TikTok. I don't know TikTok that much, but those things are coming. Snap, we'll see what happens with Snap, but Snap has an opportunity there. But product discovery still happens on social media, which is part of the core of your book.
Yes, absolutely. Product discovery happens by word of mouth. Right?
Sure.
So it's somebody telling two friends. No matter how much scale you get, if you've got that one person talking to two other people, then man, that just blows your, spending budget up. And so social is very, very key to all commerce. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing, I started thinking when we were preparing for today, I started thinking about all the products that I've purchased in the last couple of years of companies that I'd never heard of before. So I have a Casper mattress. I have Boll and Branch sheets, right? I have this stuff. And then one other thing, and we'll talk about your favorite company here in a second, but I started buying more Vans tennis shoes because they started collaborating with artists and letting me customize my shoes. And you're not a Vans guy. Who's your shoe company? Nike. Yeah. Now, why do you love Nike so much? What's their secret sauce?
They got hood value. you sport the latest Nikes in the hood, you're doing good. You know what I'm saying? But no. But I think I'm laughing at that. But, at some point, Nike just understands their audience no matter what niche, they realize, hey, if we've got a niche of people that are buying shoes for soccer, that's an audience that we can talk to very, very uniquely, that soccer versus basketball are not going to be the same thing. They don't talk to all their audiences in the same tone. And I love that about what they do and how they stay relevant. That's how they've stayed relevant for all these decades at this point, is that they understand the conversation that they need to have, from not only listening, but taking what they've heard and reforming that into marketing decisions that they make. And it's fabulous.
Now, how do you suggest someone who's not a multi-billion-dollar company that owns a town in Oregon do that?
You got to start with the social. You got to start listening. Social is not, everybody wants to push. And I don't want to go back to the old school of push and pull, but I mean, you have to start by listening first. If you don't have a marketing message that's resonating, it's because you're not listening to what everybody is saying. If I want to create a product, the first thing I have to do is start listening to what people are missing in a product maybe that's already on the market. Or if there's a hole in the market, people saying, oh, I wish I had, oh, it would be cool if. Those are ideas for you to put out. It's like, guys, I'll give you a great one. If you're doing Amazon and you've never looked at your competitors' negatives, those negative reviews are the one that's the conversation you start having with your customers to say why we're different than our competitors. That's the listening and social.
Yeah, I've thought about that specifically with books. I'm ready to start writing my own, and I want to go look at the competitors.
John and I will co-host your podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Can't wait.
You know, and actually look at the negative reviews of other books that might be in the same genre, and kind of just make sure I'm covering those aspects in that book.
Yeah.
Because just like you're saying, that's listening to the audience and what they're saying, right?
Yeah, it's stupid simple now. It used to be hard. People used to have to rent a room with a double glass window and bring in people to, a focus group to get this kind of information, and it's free now online.
One of the things when I do my Dragonproof talks, one of my takeaways is the first thing I ask people who are there and attending is, if you can't describe to someone why someone should buy from you, what makes your product special, then you have a problem. So with that, John, if you had to sum up one of these things into a takeaway, what would be the one takeaway you would give our audience today?
Figure out your business model,
okay,
right? And what really resonates with you, and then proceed. Look at all the different ways that people are making money in this e-commerce world, right? And then it's like, okay, cool. Because 10,000 people are selling how to get started on, our eBay or on Amazon. And you know what? 98% of everything in there is in the help system on those platforms. It's not rocket science, people. Nobody has the secret bullet. I'm just going to say it right now. Even though I want you to buy my book, because it does, like, I'm teasing, but nobody really has a secret bullet. It is pretty much, pretty cut and dry on how to get started. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, I think figuring out a business model, why don't you spend a few seconds on that? What do you mean by business model?
So, like I said, I'll give you my way. First thing I did was started selling stuff around my house. The next thing we did is started finding stuff at retail that we could resell. The next thing we did was started purchasing a product that was, it was from Dell, and it was, like their refurbished
stuff. Yep.
Right. The next thing we started doing was actually making our own little product. And then ultimately we took what we were looking at, all the different products we were kind of making, and we narrowed it down to the top, 80-20. We put the 80-20 rule, and then we said, okay, this is the brand we could go after, and that's how I got into shoelaces.
I love, that's a different podcast, but I love that you went from refurbished Dells to shoelaces.
Yeah. And I somewhere in there, we'll talk about it another time, but somewhere in there, with your love of Nike and being a shoe guy, like, I still can't believe you're not collecting the data trying to upsell those people to the shoe guys, but that's a whole nother, I don't want to.
One day.
One day.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of one day, we had you one day. Thank you so much for coming to the show. We super appreciate your input. But for those of you who want to know more about you, other than your book,
hold it up high.
Here we are one more time. We'll show it. Kick-ass social commerce for e-preneurs. Where would you like people to go to learn more about you?
JohnLawson.com. Simple, easy. My name. I'm there. I'm here to help you. Or if you need somebody to speak.
Look, I've been speaking. How long has it been since?
I don't. You know,
7 or 8 years. I was trying to figure that out. I think so.
Wow.
It's been a while. I'll have to figure it out, but it's been a long while.
But I do remember when you brought Amazon on as a channel.
Yeah.
For Amoeba, so it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Well, I want to thank everyone today for watching us or listening at home. We really appreciate that you spend your time with us.
Yeah, and until next episode, stay Dragonproof.